out tonight and aren't on the session yet. So some people are missing partners. So if you and your partner have exchanged words and you want to give some love to those people who have typed some dilemmas that they haven't gotten feedback on, that would be awesome as we try to support everybody in this session equally. You're currently working on, or if you are done, go ahead and come back to the WebEx or whatever you have open with WebEx. So hopefully you've gotten some scenarios. I saw some people even talking about, like, come talk to me on Saturday, because sometimes it's even easier to explain in person. And since we know we have content time on Saturday together, that's another awesome place to bring these problems. We're going to have some people present us some dilemmas on Saturday, and we're going to work through them together. So more of this problem solving to come. Awesome. So again, where we are headed tonight. So this on the left, hopefully as you started to settle into the year and get used to what with your TLD coaches like, with now working with me sort of since I've joined staff 3 weeks ago, you're starting to see, like, this is the cycle that we usually go through. And if you're not finding that to be true, that should be a thing that we talk about. But starting up here with this setting goals, so you started this before the year in your beginning of your conversations. Obviously, every day you're instructing your students, gathering and sharing data, you're analyzing that, and then you're creating plans based on that. Where we are headed tonight is this lovely point here between gathering our data, student samples of work already, and now we're going to figure out how do we analyze this. Screen, my bad. So now it should look lovely, and there is a great graphic of a circle and a star, and hopefully you can see it. Thanks for calling that out for me. So we're at this point right here where we are gathering our data from students and then figuring out what do we actually do with it. What does that mean for us moving forward? And in terms of that data, we are about this on the right that talks about what actually makes a performance task a performance task, right? And we worked on number 1 and 2 last week of designing performance tasks, making sure there were things that were getting kids to do meaningful work with science, making sure that students are actually using knowledge and practice. Oops. And so figuring out how do we grade these holistically so that students are getting more feedback than just, you got it, you're wrong, but celebrating them for the growth and success that they do have. So, about it, you've probably heard this term a whole lot about the Quasar rubric, and I want to give you a little bit of background of where this actually comes from. And I know that Cree and Kelly have taken a course in this already, so they're probably experts. I'll hear from Kelly in a little bit to talk through it. For the rest of us, the Quasar project, the quantitative understanding, amplifying student achievement, and reasoning project, did a whole lot of research in the late 90s and operated with this idea that poor urban students who exhibit low performance on assessment lack ability or potential, but rather lack meaningful experiences with mathematical learning and are not exposed to exciting mathematical content. So it's not that our students don't know the content, and we all know this to be true right now. Our students know the stuff. Or we're working to get them to a place where they are knowing stuff on grade level. But actually, maybe in the past, they have not been actually challenged to take that knowledge, to the world, to solve problems in the real world rather than just answering multiple choice questions. So Rubric created this rubric that actually gave us a more holistic picture of students' understanding in math. And I know a lot of us are sitting here talking about, like, why are we talking about a math classroom? I got it. I get you. We're going to get there in 1 second. Well, here's what the rubric actually measures. So first part is it measures students' knowledge of math concepts. Just the basic level, like they know what we're talking about in class. The second thing that this rubric measures is how students go through the solution process. How do they understand like the steps of a problem? How can they break down their own thinking? So this last part too, about how are they able to explain and communicate those ideas in a way that makes sense and is in a way that can be understood. So Mississippi 2 years ago took this Quasar rubric. It used to be like a 5-page document, and we simplified it down to a 1-page table for our math core members. And as Anna was working with Ethan, our math specialist last year, she decided that this really wanted to focus in our science classes. And so we designed this rubric and modified it a little bit to talk about our science students and their work. So what we're going to do right now is spend some time exploring what the rubric is. There are groups that I'm going to show you exactly what you're doing, and then I'll put this screen back up, and we can see who's in our group. So in Google Drive, you see Session 2 materials, and number 2 is the actual rubric. Right? And there are the 3 different rows, the science knowledge, strategic knowledge, and communication. And what I would love for us to spend the next 7 minutes doing is figuring out what are these rows actually measuring. I gave us like a broad overview. And so we're going to get like specific in groups and then talk about like what are each of these rows. We're going to do this on page 5 and 6 of the Google space. And once again, here are your groups. So if you like raise your hand, say it out loud, and I will walk us through that again. That was a lot at one time.
Just kidding. So now Google Docs is a little slow, so the links.
And this is talking to your partner. I saw lots of love and collaboration in groups, which was exciting. I head back to the WebEx screen. I keep saying that just because some people told me on other times this week they were confused where I was. So if it's you, I'm sorry. So for somebody from group 1 to unmute themselves and just give us like a brief overview, what is your rubric row measure? What was your example? I saw some really great examples in the Google Doc. Rick, about your rubric row? Group two, can somebody from your group just summarize what was your rubric row all about and what were you guys thinking students would really need to show?
We came to a consensus that things to or our strategic thinking rubric part were all about like students using prior knowledge and background information in order to demonstrate some kind of like solve or problem solving like process to arrive at like the right answer eventually, and explaining the work and their thinking along the way.
Great, thanks, Allie. Can group 3 sum up what did you guys really come to the conclusion your rubric row was all about?
The biggest thing that I saw was it's not just a single type of communication, such as or explaining factual recall, but kind of, excuse me, it's bringing multiple sources. So it talks about like graphs or tables, as well as the really get an understanding or a mastery of the content.
Perfect. And so we're going to do now, so we have explored the rubric. We know what we're measuring students against. It actually takes a little bit of finesse in actually starting the grading process. And so Kelly's going to help us out a little bit and talk through what she does, because she has given a performance task. She has gone through the grading process for a couple of her students already. So she's going to walk us through how she goes about grading on this rubric. So Kelly, I'm going to turn over to you. If you need me to do anything, let me know. We'll help you out.
Hi, everybody. I get to talk today. Erin makes me sound like this great expert. I gave a performance test to one class period, graded like 3 1s, and went to another PD earlier this summer that they were also on. So I'm not an expert, but when I approach this rubric, it's complicated. And so I think Erin put in there the simple rubric I made for the Google Drive folder, the simplified rubric maybe that I made, the student facing.
I'm on your Google Drive. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. You don't have to go down there yet if you don't want to, but it's for the students, it's also for me. And so, because it's similar for me to understand too. I don't know if any of you guys use rubrics to grade other things. I use a lot when I do little mini projects. I like to, because the rubric lays out what I'm looking for to get so many points on this stuff. And so basically, I'm trying to make this rubric do the same thing. I'm trying to lay out what it's looking for to get points, 3 points, 4 points. And when I'm doing a rubric specifically for one assignment, like my kids today were doing a poster project with a nutrition label. That is specifically for that assignment. And so the rubric says for me, to get 4 points, you must correctly identify 2 macromolecules from your nutrition label, or what project happens to be. Because this rubric is general, it doesn't say that. And so work each time you grade a task to decide what it means to use scientific vocabulary in the task. What is it to identify important parts of this task? And the best way often to do that is simply to answer the questions yourself. Try to think a little bit like a student, but like a very successful student. Self answers for, yeah, sorry, I just made Erin find that, and then I went off of it. So you can see my simplified rubric. It's a lot of the same stuff. It's split down in a few less words in it mostly. What I do is I take my task and I write my own answers. In the Google Drive, the third document that she put in there, or maybe it's the fourth one. Yeah, so the third one is just the task itself, exactly what I gave the students. So you can post it if you want to. The third one is my exemplar. And if you open it up, thinking about when I say I answer the questions myself, I scroll down maybe, yeah, scroll down a bit. Or student response example 1. And black my answers, and then this time I'll explain my thinking for you guys. I through, and in red I made comments about what you would need to get points in each row. Now I would not always do this much because it took me and was when I sent her this in an email last night, so kind of late at night. I would want this to be going on in the back of my head as I was writing my responses. So I would want to be thinking like, okay, what knowledge or procedure do I need to have? So like for that first part, the very first part of the task was to draw a line graph. So procedure knowledge is how to draw a line graph. To get up, you have to have everything labeled, and only that you have to have included units. But I labeled everything and didn't put, degrees Celsius on there, just put temperature, then I would maybe give you a C, because you've got the idea, but you're missing the details. The kind of thinking I'm trying to do when I'm preparing. And Erin, do you want me to keep walking through what I was doing on this task, or what I was looking for on this task, or do you want me to look at that? I don't know how much time you want me to take.
I think that this is adequate. I think that they can look through it, but if other people have questions before Kelly shows us an actual graded response, feel free to type them in or just say it out loud once you've unmuted yourself. I think she's done a great job explaining, but other people have thoughts.
Do you like I
Okay, I'm going to take that, Kelly, as you can go ahead and show them the student responses.
So this is where it gets a little complicated, because I was doing this by taking pictures instead of by scanning things. At number 5, it's a folder, and it says student number 1 KD responses. That folder, are these just the response? Never mind. The two documents are pretty much the same. I sent pictures that have my handwriting on them too, but I see them there. So part 1 for this student, the part with the line graph, the Connie wrote on her paper, the line of what's on the Y and the X-axis. Those axes are labeled, but it doesn't have units. I have evidence of process in the table that she was drawing this line graph from. be on the X and the Y. It shows me that she's all there in terms of understanding the graphing. And so I say that she's got, you know, correctly, just a few minor areas. She's got the idea. And then the water temp, the concentration of oxygen decreases. So she did do it right, but she didn't actually finish her sentence. She didn't say what the water temperature was doing. So those things where I would give her a point, because I know that she didn't. I'm darn sure she knew what she meant to say there, but she didn't actually say it. And I try not to, for me of a performance task, is to only give the students credit, and this is what I tell them, for what they actually say. I'm going to guess, I'm not going to fill in the blanks for you. See, again, she's got fairly complete understanding of where 9.5 parts per million of dissolved oxygen is, that occurs of a water temperature at about 15. What I understand is temperatures, because what I said in the question was it requires at least. So she understood where 9.5 was, but she didn't understand more if it was, you know, lower or higher than that. What are the other options where the fish could survive? So that's where I kind of lower her knowledge a little bit to some errors, you know, to maybe a 2.5 or so. That maybe she's not totally as much as I thought from the initial thing. And then the question, her universal solvent is what I was looking for. But her communication, it's the universal solvent. Like I'm not guessing for the student what they mean. I literally on her paper, what is it? I want her to tell me that. And I wanted the students to talk in that answer about dissolved because ions or polar molecules could be dissolved in water, and therefore oxygen must be polar. So again, to me, that's going to be some understanding of the scientific concept, but not very high points in communication or explanation, because she didn't give me very much. So what I ended up giving her on this first part was about a 2 when it averaged out. She has some decent understandings, but she's also got some limitations in communicating clear descriptions and make some errors here and there. So overall, it balanced